Philip Poole, Global Head of Macro and Investment Strategy at HSBC. He joins us on the show. Philip, hi. Firstly, a word on India, because S&P has raised an alert on India's investment grade. How serious is the concern, and how will it impact the FII perception of the country?
Yeah, well, there's nothing new really in what S&P said. We know about the twin deficits, we know about the structural issues in government, the lack of action on some of these key infrastructure projects, for example, and we know about the vulnerability to higher oil prices. So what I think has happened here is that the rating alert has really shifted this perhaps more into focus for the government in India. It's become more of a headline concern for them, and it's possibly something which will help to galvanise some action on their part. No government, of course, likes to be in charge when an economy is downgraded, and it could be the jolt that's required really to move things along.
Morning, Philip. Nikunj Dalmia also joining in from the Mumbai studio. What is your overall view on India, given the way how rupee has cracked against the dollar?
Well, the fall in the rupee, from a foreign investor perspective, of course, makes it cheaper to buy the Indian market, and it adds to the value that's there on offer in the longer term. I've talked about the problems, but we see substantial value in some of these stocks, and the fact that the rupee has cheapened so much is an entry point, in a sense, for foreign investors. So in that respect, I think it's good news if you're looking for value in a market and the currency is depreciated against your own. That would apply, of course, to the dollar, it would apply to the euro, it would apply to the yen, and investors in all of those markets have and will continue to be interested in the Indian story. The negative side, though, of the weakness in the rupee is that it exacerbates an inflation problem which hasn't completely gone away. Now, oil prices have been falling, so that's helped on the inflation front, but the weaker the rupee, of course, the more you get an imported inflation effect. So that's something of a concern. At the moment, I would say that it's the valuation aspects which, for us, are more important than the inflation concern, but we will watch that inflation concern very carefully.
Philip, you just talked about the currency. So how much more fall in the currency do you expect in India, and what's your outlook on which way the rupee may head and what factors may impact the currency moves?
Yeah, it's difficult to be clear. I think the key issue for the rupee is what happens to the current account. I don't see really much more weakness on the capital account, but I think the current account has conflicting drivers, as it were. Oil prices have come down, but there's some concern now about service-related earnings. So I think the current account story will be an important part of what drives the currency. And just like other risk assets, really more generally, what happens to global risk appetite will continue to be important for the currency.
What kind of policy action do you expect from the Reserve Bank of India in lieu of the slowing growth that we've seen? It was first the GDP shocker, and then yesterday we saw, a shocker of an IIP data. Yeah,
well, I think there will be more easing. I'd say probably another 50 basis points of rate cutting before the end of the year. Could see some action also in terms of reserve requirements to try to stimulate loan growth. So yes, I think the RBI will be responding to this weakness that we've seen in growth. Most recently, of course, the industrial production data, and will be easing in accord with that.
Philip, so let's nail it down to sectors and preferences. What do you like within Indian markets?
Well, at the moment, it's really the domestic cyclicals that we favour, where we are overweight, and particularly discretionary consumption stocks, some of the financials, some of the industrials. The consumer staples still look expensive to us. So those domestic cyclicals, generally speaking, are the ones that we would highlight in terms of the value. And we do like the long-term consumption story for India.